Very, very important bill because it is bipartisan. And the issue here is that these fees, as Senator Grassley has said often, haven't been updated since 2001. And it's the filing fees for mergers. And right now we have, under the previous administration, actually, they took on some major cases, which I commended, against Facebook and Google. And that's going to take a lot of people to do that. They also have other antitrust cases. Many of you have talked to me about the consolidation in so many areas. And yet, when you actually look at the number of lawyers that have worked there, they have significantly less than, say, when Ronald Reagan was president, because of the way these fees have worked and other issues. In 1980, the antitrust division, when they broke up AT&T, had 453 lawyers. As of April 2021, that number is at 299 lawyers. The FTC had 1,719 employees in 1980. As of yesterday, it had 1,120. And you just cannot take on the biggest companies in the world with duct tape and Band-Aids. And we all know that they actually often are profit centers. They bring in, because of the filing fees, significant money and actually over their budget to the federal government. And so I commend all of the members who are interested in these issues. We know that many of us want to get moving on some of these tech issues, and whether it's related to ag, whether it's related to consolidation in the pharmaceutical industry, but we're going to need the resources to do it. And what's interesting about the bill, and where I think Senator Grassley and others have been strong supporters of it, is that we actually decrease the merger fees on the smaller mergers and the smaller companies quite significantly for them, and we increase it on the big mega mergers. And none of this is taxpayer money. And for these big companies, the over $5 billion mergers, it is a drop in the bucket compared to all the lawyers' fees and everything else they're paying for these mergers. So that's the bill, and I've really appreciated Senator Grassley's support for it, as well as other members, and I want to thank everyone for caring about antitrust and trying to make it cool again. And I note there's several have written on this topic. I'm looking at one of them right now, so thank you very much.
If no senator seeks recognition or is prepared to offer a minute, Senator Hawley.
Can we just a very brief comment? I want to thank Senator Klobuchar for her important work on this, and I'm going to support this legislation today. I just wanted to note my continuing concern with the FTC and, frankly, the antitrust division and their performance, their track record over now a couple of decades, which I think has been quite lacking, and to point out that in the last 10 years or so, much of the most important work in the antitrust space has been done by the state attorneys general. And so I wonder if we ought not to be directing more attention and perhaps resources, making resources available to the state attorneys general. So I'm supportive of this legislation, but I want to register again, as I have many times before this committee, my deep concern about the FTC's performance, in particular in the last decade, particularly as it relates to the biggest technology companies, but frankly, all of these giant corporations that the FTC has looked the other way on time and time again. Google is a glaring, glaring example. So I support giving them more resources, but I think we've also got to think seriously about supporting other law enforcement entities like the state attorneys general in their work on this important topic. But thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does any other senator seek recognition
Mr. Chairman.
Offer in a minute? Senator Cruz.
Mr. Chairman, I want to agree with the comments of Senator Hawley and say in particular that we are living in a new Gilded Age, where the oligarchs in Silicon Valley are the robber barons of this century. And I am quite disappointed by the lax antitrust enforcement we saw in the previous administration, both the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice, that have ignored or been far too forgiving of the monopolists in Silicon Valley, a handful of billionaires who now bestride our information world and political discourse like colossuses, seemingly unable and unwilling to be checked by the requirements of federal law. And so I'm hopeful with this new administration. Democrats have historically been more vigorous on antitrust than Republicans. And so perhaps that instinct, which at times can be harmful, will be positively directed towards the monopolist we have in Silicon Valley. I will note also that Senator Klobuchar just wrote a massive new book on antitrust, which yesterday she came over and told me, I sent that antitrust book to you. And I was like, oh, someone wrote a book on antitrust. And I had no idea it was her book until I saw it a few minutes later. And it's something like 650 pages. I will say I read on Amazon the opening paragraphs of the introduction, and it was actually quite delightful, which has never been written or said about any antitrust book in the history of the law. So I commend Senator Klobuchar for that. I do want to ask a question about this bill. I am open to the idea of raising the fees for giant multi-billion-dollar corporations for mergers. I am concerned about raising the fees for smaller firms. And so I wanted to, I'm reading the text of the bill, but it's one of those bills that says replace this number with that number, replace this number with that number, and it's not immediately apparent to me which number is being replaced with what. So my question, Senator Klobuchar, is what is the effect of this bill for smaller firms, not the giant behemoths, but smaller firms that are seeking antitrust review?
Of course. So for mergers that are less than $161 million, the old fee was $45,000. The new fee will be $30,000. For mergers that are less than $500 million, the old fee was $125,000. The new fee is $100,000. This was very important to Senator Grassley. For mergers between less than $1 billion, the new fee was somewhere between $125,000, $280,000. The new fee is in the middle at $250,000. For mergers that are between $1 billion, think of how big that is, and $2 billion, the merger fees are $280,000, the old ones, the new ones $400,000. And then at the top of the scale, the $5 billion plus deals, which tend to be a lot of the tech companies, go from $280,000 to $2,250,000. And again, it sounds like a lot, but when, and I know that Senator Hawley knows this from the work that he's done, they hire so many lawyers and so many consultants. This is literally a drop in the bucket compared to the rewards these lawyers get at the end if the deal goes through. And yet we're supposed to be able to examine all of their books. And Macon Delrahim, the former antitrust head under the Trump administration, is strongly in support of this bill because of that. He knows how hard it is to take them on.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you.
So if there are no amendments, no one wishing to seek